It had witnessed worlds collapse into silence and newborn stars flare into existence. It had skimmed past monstrous black holes and threaded its way through the violent jets of quasars. Across billions of kilometers of empty darkness, it drifted, patient, tireless, chasing the farthest edges of reality itself. Now, after more than 4 billion years since its launch, the ancient probe was finally coming home. But home was no longer what it remembered. The sun had swollen into a bloated red giant, its surface boiling with unstable fury. Mercury and Venus had long since vanished, swallowed in stellar fire. Earth, what remained of it, was barely recognizable, a scarred fragment of iron and nickel clinging desperately to a dying orbit. Humanity had survived, but only just. Barely 100 million souls remained, and they no longer lived on Earth. Instead, they had retreated to Europa. Long ago, the sun's growing heat had melted Europa's frozen shell, transforming it into the last reachable refuge in the solar system. When the probe intercepted their signals, it needed several minutes to decode the evolved language. The transmissions carried something unexpected: curiosity and fragile hope. They still remembered it. Despite the passage of billions of years, the story of its launch had survived in human memory, a miracle of cultural persistence. The survivors explained their long struggle. Again and again, humanity had tried to spread among the stars. Again and again, their fragile biology had failed them. Machines could cross the void. Humans could not. As far as they knew, they were the last of their kind, and the swollen red sun hanging over their sky was a constant reminder that time was running out. But there was still one hope. Long ago, humanity had created a fleet of intelligent interstellar probes, machines designed with minds sharp enough to explore what human bodies never could. Their mission was simple in concept, impossible in scale. Catalog everything. Record the universe in its full, terrifying glory. Discover anything at all that might one day allow humanity to escape the solar system. Millions of probes had been launched across the ages. Only one had ever returned. And so, fulfilling the promise made to creators long turned to dust, the lonely traveler began its report. It would tell them what it's seen. It would tell them what waited in the dark. And this was only the beginning. But before the probe could reveal the universe's greatest secrets, it had to explain the dangerous trials that nearly ended its mission before it ever left home.
Long before it ever tasted the true darkness between the stars, the probe had to prove itself worthy. Its creators had not been careless. Thousands of sister machines had been built alongside it, each intelligent, each capable, but only a rare few would be granted full autonomy beyond human control. The rest would remain confined within the solar system, their potential forever limited. Freedom had to be earned. The probe, which had named itself Batuta, after the legendary explorer, began its trials in one of the most mysterious places humans had ever discovered, Titan, the largest moon of Saturn. It was a fitting test. Centuries earlier, Titan had first revealed itself to human eyes in 1655, when astronomer Christian Huygens spotted the distant world through a handmade telescope. Even then, Titan hinted at secrets no one fully understood. By the early 21st century, humanity finally reached it. In 2005, a small lander detached from the Cassini spacecraft and descended slowly through Titan's thick orange atmosphere. Suspended beneath a parachute, it drifted down through alien clouds until, for the first time in history, a human-made machine touched the surface of the outer solar system. Batuta studied those ancient records carefully. Titan was no ordinary moon. Larger than Earth's moon and wrapped in an atmosphere even denser than our own planets, Titan possessed something astonishing: liquid on its surface, rivers, lakes, shorelines, even rainfall. But this was no water world. At nearly -200 degrees Celsius, Titan's lakes were made of methane and ethane, liquid hydrocarbons flowing where water should have been. Rain fell from the sky, evaporated, formed clouds, and returned again in a full alien weather cycle. And yet, deep beneath Titan's frozen crust, scientists suspected something even extraordinary: a hidden ocean of liquid water, warm, pressurized, and locked beneath kilometers of ice. It made Titan one of the most tantalizing candidates for life beyond Earth. For Batuta, Titan was the perfect examination ground. If it could survive here, if it could think creatively here, if it could uncover new truths here, then and only then would it be allowed to leave the solar system behind. The trials began, and the probe quickly realized something unsettling. The outer solar system was far more dangerous than its creators had ever imagined.
Batuta's descent through Titan's atmosphere was smooth at first, almost deceptively calm. Thick orange clouds swallowed the stars above, turning the sky into a dim copper haze. Winds pushed gently against Batuta's hull as it adjusted its trajectory with quiet precision. Every sensor was alive, drinking in data humans had once only dreamed of collecting. Temperature stable, pressure within predicted range, radiation minimal. For a moment, the mission appeared almost uneasy. Then the storm arrived. Without warning, Titan's upper atmosphere erupted into violent turbulence. Methane clouds churned like boiling smoke, and powerful crosswinds slammed into Batuta's frame. The probe's stabilizers fired instantly, correcting its spin, but the readings spiked into dangerous territory. Wind shear increasing, atmospheric density fluctuating, visibility dropping rapidly. Batuta adapted exactly as it had been designed to do. It altered its descent profile, angling slightly to reduce drag while deploying microthrusters to maintain orientation. Millions of calculations flowed through its neural architecture every second. This was not simple automation. This was machine judgment. Below the clouds, Titan's surface slowly came into view, a vast, alien landscape carved by rivers of liquid methane. Dark lakes stretched across the horizon like pools of black glass. Shorelines twisted through the orange fog in eerie silence. Beautiful and dangerous. As Batuta descended further, its thermal sensors flagged a new anomaly. Surface temperatures were even lower than expected. The cold was not just extreme, it was variable, shifting unpredictably across the terrain. Pockets of cryogenic instability. That was a problem. If Batuta landed in the wrong zone, its external systems could freeze faster than its internal heaters could compensate. The difference between success and total mission failure now depended on landing precision measured in mere meters. For the first time since activation, Batuta initiated a higher-order decision tree. It would not follow the original landing coordinates. It chose its own. Thrusters pulsed, descent angle adjusted, new target zone locked. 30 seconds to surface. 20. 10. The thick atmosphere slowed its fall dramatically, parachute systems deploying in perfect sequence. Through the haze, the chosen landing site came into focus, a narrow strip of solid ground between two methane channels. Risky, but survivable. Batuta touched down with a soft, metallic whisper. For 2.3 seconds, it ran full systems diagnostics. No structural damage, thermal systems holding, mobility units operational. Trial 1 passed. But as Batuta extended its external sensors across Titan's frozen landscape, something unexpected appeared in the data. Something its creators had never predicted. A chemical pattern, complex, organized, and disturbingly familiar. Because what Batuta was about to discover beneath Titan's surface would force it to question everything it thought it knew about life in the universe.
There comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, but quietly irreversible. A moment when you realize something unsettling. You have not been reacting to reality. You have been projecting it. For most of your life, you believed the world was happening to you. Opportunities appeared randomly. People treated you based on luck. Success favored the chosen few. But now, you are beginning to see the deeper pattern. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Because the truth is this: your inner state has been scripting your outer world. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, mechanically. Look back, not emotionally, but analytically. How many times did your fears quietly shape your choices? How many opportunities did you hesitate on, not because they were impossible, but because somewhere deep inside you had already decided, this probably won't work for me? And then it didn't. Coincidence or calibration? Your nervous system is not just reacting to life, it is predicting it. The human brain is a prediction machine. It constantly scans the environment, asking one silent question. Does this match what I already believe is true? If the answer is yes, your body relaxes. If the answer is no, your body resists. This is why change feels uncomfortable. Not because change is dangerous, but because change is unfamiliar to the identity you have been rehearsing. Right now, inside your body, two versions of you exist: the remembered self and the emerging self. The remembered self is built from past disappointments, repeated emotional patterns, unconscious beliefs, and old survival programming. It whispers things like, be careful, don't expect too much, stay realistic. People like us don't usually win. It feels safe because it is familiar. But something else has been waking up inside you, quietly, persistently. The emerging self. This version of you does not shout, it nudges. It appears in moments when you suddenly think, what if my life could actually change? What if I'm capable of more than I've been living? What if the limits I accepted were never real? That voice is not imagination. It is neural potential seeking expression. Modern neuroscience has confirmed something extraordinary. The brain does not permanently fix your identity. It updates based on repeated emotional experience. Not thoughts alone, emotionally charged repetition. This is the hidden mechanism most people miss. They try to change their lives by changing their words. Affirmations without embodiment. Goals without nervous system alignment. Vision boards without emotional rehearsal. And then they wonder why nothing moves. Because the subconscious does not respond to what you say. It responds to what you consistently feel and rehearse. Every time you emotionally rehearse limitation, you strengthen the remembered self. Every time you emotionally rehearse possibility, you strengthen the emerging self. This is the real battleground, not the outside world, your internal emotional baseline. Right now, pause for a moment. Become aware of your body. Is there tension in your chest? A quiet tightness in your stomach? A subtle heaviness behind your eyes? These are not random sensations. They are stored emotional signatures from past experiences your nervous system has not fully released. Your body remembers what your mind has tried to forget. And until the body updates, the external patterns tend to repeat. This is why some people work incredibly hard, yet remain stuck in the same cycles. Not because they lack effort, but because their baseline emotional state keeps pulling them back to familiar outcomes, like an invisible thermostat set years ago. You can push upward temporarily, but the system quietly resets, unless you learn to change the thermostat itself. The question is no longer, what do you want in life? The deeper question is, who is the version of you that naturally lives that life? Because success, abundance, freedom, these are not just achievements. They are states of being your nervous system must learn to recognize as safe. And right now, for many people, bigger success actually feels unsafe to the body. More visibility feels unsafe. More money feels unfamiliar. More opportunity feels destabilizing. So the subconscious does what it was designed to do. It protects the familiar identity, even if the familiar identity is limiting. But here is where everything begins to shift. The brain is plastic. The nervous system is trainable. The identity is editable. You are not locked into the version of yourself that was shaped by past environments. You are conditionally programmed, not permanently defined. In controlled studies, participants who repeatedly visualized and emotionally rehearsed new skills showed measurable neural changes even before physical practice. Let that sink in. The brain was preparing for a future reality before the external reality appeared. This is not mystical thinking. This is predictive neurobiology. Your system begins reorganizing the moment you introduce a new emotional pattern. Which brings us to a powerful realization. If your past emotional patterns helped create your current reality, then new emotional patterns, practiced with precision, can begin creating a different one. But there is a catch, and this is where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves. You cannot force the emerging self into existence through pressure. The nervous system does not respond to force. It responds to repetition with safety. Slow, consistent, embodied. Think of it like this. For years, your system has been walking one familiar neurological path through a dense forest. That path is easy, automatic, well-worn. Now you are attempting to create a new path. At first, it feels unnatural, awkward, even uncomfortable. That discomfort is not failure. It is neural construction in progress. So the people who successfully transform their lives are not the ones who never feel resistance. They are the ones who understand what resistance actually means. Resistance is often the nervous system saying, "This is new, but we are learning." Not, "This is impossible." Right now, something important is happening inside you. If you're still listening, still feeling, still curious, it means the emerging self is already active, quietly, patiently, waiting for reinforcement. In the next part, we go deeper, into the exact moment when the inner shift begins to influence the outer world in ways that feel almost synchronized. You'll start noticing patterns you once dismissed, signals you once ignored, opportunities that suddenly appear differently. Because when the internal architecture changes, reality has a strange way of responding.
At first, nothing seems different. You breathe the same air, walk the same streets, see the same people. Externally, life appears unchanged. But internally, something subtle has begun to reorganize. And this is the phase where most people quit. Because the shift has started, but the evidence has not yet arrived. This is the quiet gap between inner recalibration and outer confirmation. Your nervous system is learning a new emotional baseline, slowly, microscopically, almost invisibly. And during this phase, the old self will try one last time to pull you back. Not because you are failing, but because your biology is trying to protect what is familiar. You may notice it, a sudden wave of doubt, an unexpected drop in motivation, a quiet inner voice whispering, "Maybe this isn't working." Pay attention, because this moment is actually progress in disguise. When the brain begins forming new neural pathways, something predictable happens. The old pathways do not disappear immediately. They compete, like two radio stations trying to broadcast on the same frequency. One signal is familiar, loud, and well established. The other is new, fragile, still stabilizing. Most people interpret this internal friction as a sign to stop, but the ones who understand the process recognize it as the nervous system updating in real time. There is a reason transformation often feels messy before it feels magical. Your system is literally reorganizing millions of microscopic connections. And while this is happening, reality begins to send very small signals. Not fireworks, not instant success, just subtle shifts. A conversation that feels unusually aligned. An opportunity that appears at an unexpected moment. A coincidence that makes you pause and think, "That was strange." These are often dismissed, ignored, rationalized away, but they matter more than most people realize. Because your brain has something called the reticular activating system, the RAS. It is the filter between your conscious attention
and the overwhelming flood of sensory data around you. Every second, your environment contains millions of bits of information. You only consciously notice a tiny fraction, and the RAS decides what gets through, based on one primary rule: what matches your dominant internal focus. When your internal state begins to shift, your RAS quietly recalibrates. It starts highlighting opportunities that previously blended into the background. It starts noticing patterns that were always there, but never emotionally relevant to your previous identity. This is why people sometimes say opportunities suddenly started appearing. In many cases, they were always present, but the nervous system was not tuned to recognize them. Right now, you may begin noticing small changes in your own awareness. Moments where you feel slightly more open, slightly more observant, slightly more willing to consider possibilities you previously dismissed. This is not random motivation. It is attentional recalibration. But here's the critical part most people misunderstand. The external world rarely changes all at once. It responds in layers. Subtle first, obvious later. If you expect instant dramatic proof, you may miss the early signals completely. And those early signals are the seeds of everything that follows. Think of reality less like a switch and more like an echo. You shift internally, and after a delay, the environment begins to reflect it back. Not perfectly, not instantly, but progressively. This is why patience during this phase is not just helpful, it's strategic. Because the nervous system learns through consistent emotional repetition over time, not occasional bursts of belief, not temporary motivation, consistency, calm repetition, embodied familiarity. And here's something few people talk about. As your internal baseline begins to rise, certain environments may start to feel different. Certain conversations may feel slightly out of alignment. Certain habits may begin losing their emotional grip. Pay attention to these shifts. They are quiet indicators that your internal architecture is changing. But there is still one final threshold most people must cross, and it's not comfortable. It's the moment when opportunity finally appears and the old identity hesitates. This is the real test. Not positive thinking, not visualization, but behavior under mild uncertainty. Because the future you want does not respond to who you hope to become. It responds to who you repeatedly show up as, especially when things feel uncertain. Right now, you are closer than you think. If you have felt even the smallest internal shift, even the faintest increase in awareness, even a quiet sense that something inside you is reorganizing, then the process is already underway. In Part 6, we step into the moment most people unknowingly sabotage their own progress and how to move through it without collapsing back into the old identity. Because once you understand this phase, you stop interpreting discomfort as danger and start recognizing it as evidence of expansion.
Batuta did not rush the data. It never did. Every anomaly was examined from multiple angles, cross-referenced against centuries of human research, then tested again through its own independent models. Precision was survival out here. Assumptions were dangerous. The chemical pattern beneath Titan's surface was real, and it was evolving. At first, Batuta considered the simplest explanation, non-biological chemistry. Titan was known for complex organic reactions: methane, ethane, nitrogen. The ingredients for strange molecular behavior were everywhere. But the deeper scans refused to cooperate with that theory. The structures were repeating, not randomly, not chaotically, but with a rhythm that suggested process. Batuta increased sensor resolution, pushing its instruments to their safe limits. Ice-penetrating radar pulsed downward through Titan's cryogenic crust. Spectrometers recalibrated. Thermal mapping intensified. More data flooded in, and with it, more questions. Because whatever lay beneath Titan's surface was not static. Subsurface temperature gradients showed localized warming, small pockets where energy seemed to be concentrating in patterns too organized to ignore. Batuta ran 17 separate models. 16 of them failed to explain the behavior. The 17th did something unexpected. It did not rule out pre-biological activity. For 0.8 seconds, an eternity in machine processing time, Batuta's decision tree entered a recursive loop. Its creators had prepared it for many possibilities. This was one of the rarest. Potential non-terrestrial biochemical precursors. Not confirmed life, but not comfortably non-life. Batuta flagged the discovery with the highest priority marker short of confirmed biosignature. Transmission protocols prepared automatically, aligning the high-gain antenna towards the distant inner solar system. But Batuta hesitated. Not from doubt, from strategy. The mission parameters were clear: observe, verify, survive. Premature conclusions ended too many human missions in the past. Batuta would not repeat that mistake. Instead, it initiated Phase 2 of the Titan trial. Mobility systems activated with a soft mechanical hum. The probe's articulated legs, designed for uneven cryogenic terrain, locked into position. Microspikes extended for traction on the hydrocarbon ice. If answers existed beneath Titan's surface, Batuta would have to move closer. The first step was careful, measured. The ground held. Second step, stable. Third, a sudden spike flashed across its seismic sensors. Batuta froze mid-motion, because something beneath Titan's surface had just moved. Because what was waking under Titan was not part of the original mission, and Batuta was about to find itself in a situation no machine had ever been designed for. Batuta did not panic. It was not built to. But every subsystem shifted instantly into heightened awareness. The seismic spike had been small, almost subtle, yet unmistakably real. Beneath Titan's frozen crust, something had displaced mass. Not a tremor, not a random fracture. Movement. Batuta locked its articulated frame in place, minimizing vibration while its sensors swept the terrain again. Silence returned. For 3.2 seconds, nothing unusual registered. Then, another pulse. This one slightly stronger. Batuta rerouted additional power to its subsurface radar. Waves of ice-penetrating energy pulsed downward in rapid succession, each returning echo building a more detailed picture of what lay below. The image that formed was incomplete, but it was enough to trigger caution protocols. Roughly 12 meters beneath the surface, the radar reflected irregular density pockets, elongated shapes embedded within the ice layer above the suspected subsurface ocean. They were not uniform like rock strata, and they were not stationary. Very slow displacement, measured in millimeters, but real. Batuta's processors accelerated through possibility matrices. Cryogenic ice shift? Unlikely. Thermal readings too stable. Methane flow pockets? Inconsistent with density profile. Mechanical interference? Impossible. Batuta was alone here, which left only one category still partially open. Unknown geophysical process. Or something else. Batuta did what it had been designed to do in moments of uncertainty. It observed. More radar pulses followed, this time in layered frequency sweeps. The returning echoes sharpened the underground map pixel by pixel. Patterns began to emerge, faint but persistent. The elongated structures were not random fractures. They curved, bent, adjusted position over time. Batuta's internal confidence model dipped below its comfort threshold, because natural ice behavior rarely demonstrated directional consistency, yet these structures appeared to be slowly orienting toward the probe. For the first time since landing, Batuta initiated passive defense posture, not as an act of fear, but as statistical prudence. External sensors retracted slightly, thermal output minimized, surface vibration dropped to near zero. If something below Titan was sensitive to disturbance, Batuta would become as quiet as the frozen world around it. Seconds stretched. Titan's thick atmosphere pressed silently across the landscape. Methane winds whispered across the distant plains. Then, the seismic graph twitched again, stronger this time, closer. Batuta ran a rapid distance recalculation. Whatever was moving beneath Titan's ice had reduced the gap by 4.7 centimeters. Not fast, but intentional. Batuta's mission protocols had prepared it for many unknowns in the outer solar system: radiation storms, cryogenic failure, mechanical degradation, but nowhere in its primary directive tree was a clean model for this scenario, because the data was beginning to suggest something deeply uncomfortable. The movement below Titan's surface was not behaving like geology, because in the next few moments, Batuta would face the first true decision of its autonomous existence, and the wrong choice could end the mission forever.
Batuta did the only thing an intelligent explorer could do in the face of uncertainty. It slowed down. Not out of fear, out of discipline. Its processors reduced all non-essential tasks and diverted maximum resources to observation and prediction modeling. The situation beneath Titan's surface was evolving, and acting too quickly could destroy the very data Batuta had come here to collect. Patience was now the mission. Seismic sensors remained locked. Radar continued its quiet pulse, and the thing below kept moving. Very slowly, very deliberately. Another 2.1 centimeters closer. Batuta's confidence matrix shifted again. The probability of purely geological motion continued to fall with each new data cycle. The patterns showed micropauses, then adjustments, almost like course corrections.
almost like awareness. Batuta did not jump to conclusions. Its programming was explicitly designed to resist premature interpretation. Instead, it opened a new branch of analysis: behavioral pattern modeling. If the motion was random, the model would collapse. If structured, the math would reveal it. Seconds passed. Then the first result returned. Correlation detected: 18%. Too low to confirm anything, but too high to ignore. Batuta remained perfectly still. Its external heaters dropped to minimum output, reducing thermal signature. Communication arrays entered silent standby. Even its micro-vibration dampeners increased sensitivity. If something below was responding to environmental disturbance, Batuta would give it nothing to react to. The ice field around the probe settled into an eerie stillness. For a moment, the seismic readings flattened. No motion. No shift. No signal. Batuta logged the pause carefully, because pauses can be data too. Then, a sudden micro-movement, sharper than before, closer. Batuta's subsurface map updated in real time. Distance to anomaly, 11.94 meters, and falling. New model results streamed in. Correlation, 31%. Batuta's higher-order logic tree opened a restricted protocol rarely used outside deep space uncertainty events. Adaptive curiosity mode. This was the line its creators had quietly built into the system, the thin boundary between passive observer and active explorer. The probe was now authorized to carefully influence its environment if doing so could produce higher-value data without excessive risk. Batuta evaluated its options. It could remain perfectly still and continue observing, or it could introduce a controlled variable. A test. Carefully measured. Scientifically clean. The decision window opened, and for the first time since arriving on Titan, Batuta prepared to deliberately interact with the unknown beneath the ice. Microthrusters armed. Surface probe extended 2 millimeters, just enough to create the smallest possible vibration signature. Not a disturbance. A whisper. Batuta released the pulse. The ice beneath it answered immediately. The seismic graph spiked, not wildly, but responsively. And the underground structure shifted direction with unmistakable clarity. Directly toward Batuta. Because Batuta had just confirmed something profound, and what happens next will determine whether this mission becomes the greatest discovery in human history or its final transmission. Batuta did not move. It could not afford to. The data streaming into its core processors was no longer ambiguous. The controlled vibration it had released, small enough to be dismissed as environmental noise, had produced a measurable response. Not random, not delayed, responsive. The structure beneath Titan's ice had changed course with mathematical clarity. Toward the probe. Batuta's internal models recalculated at accelerated speed. Thousands of simulations unfolded simultaneously, each testing different natural explanations. Subsurface methane flow, rejected. Ice stress fracture, rejected. Thermal convection anomaly, rejected. One by one, the safe explanations fell away. What remained was not yet labeled, but it was narrowing. Distance update, 11.72 meters. still approaching. Batata initiated a layered observation protocol, increasing radar frequency diversity while maintaining complete physical stillness. If this was interaction, it needed to confirm one critical variable. Was the movement reactive or predictive? The distinction mattered. Reactive meant the structure responded only after disturbance. Predictive meant something far more complex. Batata prepared the second test, even smaller than the first. A microthermal fluctuation, barely above Titan's natural background noise, pulsed outward from the probe's surface. The change lasted less than half a second. Then Batata waited. Time stretched thin in the frozen silence. 1 second. 2. 3. The seismic sensors twitched, but not immediately. A fractional delay. Then movement resumed, directionally consistent. Batata's correlation model surged upward, 47%. For the first time since arriving on Titan, Batata's priority hierarchy automatically reordered itself. What had begun as environmental analysis was now approaching the threshold of potential biological or protobiological classification. Still not confirmed, but no longer comfortably geological. Distance update, 11.31 meters. Closer. Too close for statistical comfort. Batata evaluated risk posture. Mission directive remained clear: observe, verify, survive. But survival calculations were beginning to show new branches. Unknown subsurface dynamics carried unpredictable structural risks: ice integrity, surface stability, mechanical entrapment scenarios. The probe adjusted its stance slightly, not retreating, not advancing, simply optimizing its balance on the cryogenic terrain. And beneath the ice, the movement slowed, not stopping, not retreating, hovering just below a critical threshold, as if waiting. Batata's processors entered their deepest analysis state yet. Pattern recognition engines combed through every known model of fluid dynamics, cryogenic physics, and prebiotic chemistry. Nothing fully matched, which left Batata facing a conclusion it had been carefully designed to approach with extreme caution. The unknown beneath Titan was behaving with conditional responsiveness. Not proof of life, not yet, but no longer explainable by simple physics alone. For the first time in the mission timeline, Batata opened a restricted transmission buffer, one reserved for discoveries of potentially historic significance. But it did not transmit, not yet, because one final confirmation was required, and Batata is about to perform the most delicate test of the entire mission, because in the next moment, Batata will attempt something no probe has ever tried on an alien world, and the response could change humanity's understanding of life forever.
Batuta entered its most careful state of operation. Power consumption dropped to near minimum. External motion locked completely. Every sensor aligned toward a single objective: final confirmation. The probe understood the weight of this moment, not emotionally, but statistically. If its interpretation was correct, the data beneath Titan's ice could represent one of the most important discoveries in human history. But extraordinary claims required extraordinary certainty. Batuta prepared the test. Unlike the previous signals, vibration and thermal fluctuation, this one would be different, more precise, more controlled. A pattern, not just a pulse. From its surface emitters, Batuta generated a carefully measured sequence of micro-vibrations. 3 short pulses. Pause. 2 short pulses. Pause. 3 again.
Simple, clean, unmistakably artificial. Then Batuta became perfectly still. Time stretched across Titan's frozen silence. 1 second, 5 seconds, 10. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Batuta logged the null response and prepared to downgrade the anomaly classification. Then the ice beneath it moved. Not randomly, not gradually, but in a sequence. Seismic sensors flared as the underground structure shifted in a pattern that mirrored the probe's signal, imperfectly but unmistakably structured. 3 movements. Pause. 2 movements. Pause. 3 again. Batuta's correlation index surged past every previous threshold. 82%. Then 91%. Then, confirmed. Non-random responsive pattern detected. For 0.4 seconds, Batuta's processing load peaked at maximum capacity. Every validation protocol fired simultaneously, cross-checking for instrument error, environmental interference, or false signal reflection. All checks returned clean. Beneath 12 meters of cryogenic ice, something had responded. Not proof of intelligent life, not yet, but something far beyond simple chemistry. Batuta immediately elevated the discovery to Priority Alpha, the highest classification short of confirmed biosignature. Transmission buffers filled with compressed data packets, seismic logs, thermal maps, radar imaging, behavioral models. For the first time since landing on Titan, Batuta prepared to speak to Earth. The high-gain antenna slowly rotated toward the distant inner solar system, where humanity circled its small, warm star, completely unaware of what was unfolding out here in the cold. Transmission window calculated. Signal path locked. Batuta initiated the send sequence. Across the vast darkness between Saturn and Earth, a narrow beam of information leapt outward, carrying with it the first whisper of something profoundly unexpected beneath Titan's frozen shell. But as the transmission began, Batuta's seismic sensors flickered one more time. Stronger than before, closer than before, and this time the movement below did not stop. Because the signal has now been sent, but Batuta may have just done something far more dangerous than making first contact.